will be giving their suggestions and feedback. In the second working session, we'll have a presentation on draft G-20 Tourism Ministers Declaration, and we'll seek interventions, feedback and suggestions from the delegates. On the sidelines, we will have very important events, one on film tourism and another on eco-tourism. And where again, both the participants from the government, the private stakeholders, and in the first event, the international delegates will also be participating. So on the first side event on film tourism for economic growth and cultural preservation, so this will deliberate on the strategies to promote film tourism and see the participation of all the member countries and the delegates. So this also will be addressed by G20 Sherpa, the Minister of Tourism will address it, and we are having Mr. Ram Charan, who's acclaimed actor and who's really brought laurels for the country, and he will be joining us. We'll also unveil a draft national strategy on film tourism, which will be then open for suggestions and feedback from the stakeholders. And there's a panel discussion on the same subject where a number of countries will be participating, so their delegates will be participating in the panel discussion. On the second day, parallel to the tourism working group meeting, we will have this side events focused on Indian industry and the states. They will be participating. So this is about promoting Incredible India through film tourism. So there will be 3 sessions in this. The first session will talk about the overall potential of film tourism, how it can be optimized, how we can tap the potential of the film tourism. We'll have J&K putting up a presentation and opportunities. We will have a global perspective on this from Motion Picture Association. We will have industry perspective from Federation of all associations in tourism and hospitality sector. We'll have Secretary Information and Broadcasting sharing the efforts of Government of India through Film Facilitation Office, and we'll have our MOS Science and Technology addressing us. Then there will be state policies and best practices. So we are having the states of J&K, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh. They will share their policies on film tourism, and particularly how single window system is helping them promote film tourism, how the incentives are being provided to the producers and the production, and what other support are they providing. So this will help us also draft a national strategy and also understand how can we improve these policies. The third is panel discussion. That's the industry-led panel discussion. So we'll have delegates from Dharma Production, Producers Guild of India, Netflix, and FICCI, PSD Chamber, and other speakers. So they will deliberate on the other aspects of how can we create conditions for growth of film tourism. In the afternoon, the second side event is on ecotourism as a vehicle to achieve sustainable development goal. This also will have 2 sessions. The first session will talk about the national level scenario. Again, we'll have a presentation on national strategy on ecotourism. What does it provide for? How can we take it forward? How can we implement? We'll also have a presentation on ecotourism guidelines of Environment and Forest Ministry. We'll also address one of the key aspects of developing ecotourism, that is carrying capacity assessment at a national level. How do you address this? And then also looking at how do we encourage private investment in ecotourism. So these are the key speakers in this session. We also have Mr. Praveen Pardeshi, member, Capacity Building Commission. He'll be sharing about his thoughts on capacity building for ecotourism. We'll also have international expert who will talk about how do we develop ecotourism, how other countries are developing ecotourism, what are the lessons for India. And we are launching a Travel for Life program as part of Life Mission, which has been launched by Honorable Prime Minister for involving citizens in climate action and environment. How can simple actions by tourists and tourism business can create a better environment, can make sustainable tourism sustainable. So we've designed a program, we'll be launching it formally on 23rd. We also have Sustainable Tourism Criteria of India, so that toolkit we will be launching for industry and other stakeholders. And finally, it will be addressed by Honorable Minister. The second session on ecotourism again is about best practices both in the government and in the private sector. So we'll have a state of Karnataka talking about how they have been able to promote film business ecotourism through jungle lodges and resorts. We'll have a case of TATA safaris, how have the private sector succeeded in developing ecotourism. Madhya Pradesh will be sharing their practices and what they are doing for ecotourism. We'll be launching for industry and other stakeholders. And finally, it will be addressed by Honorable Minister. The second section on ecotourism again is about best practices both in the government and in the private sector. So we'll have a state of Karnataka talking about how they have been able to promote for ecotourism through jungle lodges and resorts. We'll have a case of TATA safaris, how have the private sector succeeded in developing ecotourism. Madhya Pradesh will be sharing their practices and what they are doing for ecotourism. Maharashtra will be sharing their policies and initiatives, and J&K will be sharing from the industry side as to what are the potential and perspectives for development of ecotourism in J&K. And on 24th, we have excursion for delegates. They'll be going local for looking at some of the tourism offerings in the city. We also have two cultural events. One is the gala dinner, which will be on 22nd, and it's being curated by ICCR and State and J&K. And the second is on, which is the last day, which is a farewell dinner. We are also planning for ODOP souvenirs, just to highlight our products from this region. We've identified these products, which are all local, and this will be given to the delegates as souvenirs. So this is broadly the 3-day outline, and I'll request.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure that media has got a complete outline of the program of the next 3 days. Now I'll request Secretary Tourism, Shri Arvind Singh Ji, to please address the media in terms of their...
Chief Coordinator, G-20, Mr. Shringla, Chief Secretary, J&K, Arun Mehta, my colleague from Ministry, Rakesh Verma, Secretary Tourism, J&K, Mr. Abid, ADG PIV, Mr. Chaudhary, all friends from the media. Rakesh has already given you a broad outline of how the flow of events will be. So from that you see that the key deliverables are that A, the Goa Ministerial Declaration and the Goa Roadmap that we will debate on here, because the final meeting of the G20 tourism ministers will take place in Goa in June, and this is the penultimate working group meeting. The fourth meeting will also be in Goa, followed by the ministerial. So in that context, this meeting assumes significant importance because the draft of what will be adopted by the ministers will be finalized at Srinagar. It's also important because this is the only working group meeting that is happening in Srinagar as part of the G20 effort, and we have seen excellent response from all the member countries, from the invitee countries, and from the international organizations. In terms of participation, we have one of the highest numbers that have registered and got accredited to come to attend the working group meeting compared to the last two that we saw at Run of Kutch and Siliguri. And Chief Coordinator will tell you because he is seeing the other working group meetings also. So very encouraging attendance, which has really encouraged us to make foolproof and adequate arrangements for the meeting. Also, what you are seeing is that taking the importance of this venue, we are organizing two side events. The themes are film tourism and ecotourism, and the deliverables there that you will see will be that a national strategy on film tourism, the draft will be unveiled. And also on the ecotourism side, you'll see the Travel for Life campaign, which will be also launched, which is in tune with the Mission Life campaign launched by Honorable Prime Minister and UN Secretary General sometime back at Kevadia. We are also taking this opportunity to immerse the delegates in local sightseeing, seeing the local arts and crafts, enjoying the local cuisine, and the overall experience and the natural beauty that the state of Jammu and Kashmir has to offer. As parting gifts, we are giving them one district, one product, souvenirs to take back, which are products produced in Jammu and Kashmir. So we welcome the participation of all the delegates from the G20 member countries, the invitee countries, and international organizations to collectively advance the tourism sector globally and to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals of 2030. The G20 event at Srinagar presents a unique opportunity to highlight the tourism potential and cultural richness of the region. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I request Shri Vardhan Shringla ji, Chief Coordinator G20, to please address the media.
Thank you, and let me say what a pleasure it is to meet our friends from the media. As many of you would undoubtedly know, we are now at an approximate halfway point in our presidency of the G20. In the last approximately 6 months, we have completed 118 meetings in 46 different cities across the length and breadth of our country. We obviously, for every meeting that is held, there is a lot of planning and preparation and organization. And I think the meeting in Srinagar is no exception to that. This has entailed planning at least a year and a half prior to this actual event. The G20 Secretariat and members of the Ministry of Tourism have been visiting Srinagar. Secretary Tourism and I myself visited tourism. This is the second time we are here in advance of the meeting. When we came here about a few months ago, we saw that there was a lot of work in progress. Srinagar is a smart city. There was a lot of effort to complete the work relating to the smart city project. We also looked at many of the areas that that were relevant to the G20. And I can say with all sincerity that as we drive around the city, we see a completely transformed Srinagar. We've gone to the markets, we've gone to the riverfront, we've gone to the lake area, we've gone to many of the other places that we visited the last time. And we've found that that Srinagar today is vastly more beautiful. Its facilities and amenities are that much greater. There is a lot of pride when we talk to many of the citizens, when we move around the city, in some of the systems that have been introduced, whether it is underground optic fibers, sewerage systems, water and drainage. I think from that perspective, it is truly a smart city of the type that we would like to showcase to the rest of the world. And tomorrow, as you would receive a very large number of international delegates that would come from some of the most influential countries across the world, I think we can say with pride that this is one of our most beautiful, naturally scenic, but also one of the most beautiful urban environments that we can present to our guests from across the world. Now, one thing that is that Secretary Tourism and Additional Secretary Rakesh ji has already told you is that the Tourism Working Group is a very specific one. It is actually one of the working groups that is most in line with our objectives to present our rich and diverse cultural identity, to also present to the world our tourism potential. And no other working group does it better than the Tourism Working Group. In the first working group of the tourism engagement, or rather the tourism group, we was in Rann of Kutch in Gujarat, western part of India. The second one was in Darjeeling in West Bengal, in the eastern part of India. The third, of course, which is Srinagar, which is the northern part of India, will present to our tourism representatives from across the world one of the most, as I said, scenic spots in our country, and from the tourism perspective, very, very relevant. But what is more important, I think, is that we have tried to bring in specific elements of tourism, as Secretary mentioned, whether it is sustainable tourism, eco-tourism, adventure tourism, film tourism, what is relevant to J&K and what is relevant to the Union Territory and the people of this place is what is being highlighted in this Tourism Working Group meeting. As you also know that the vision of the Prime Minister is to ensure that the message of India's G20 presidency is taken down to the grassroots level through a Jan Bhagidari process. And so a lot of efforts have been made to sensitize people in our country about G20, and that is why we've also held it in locations across our country, north, south, east and west. And in that context, I think a lot of effort has been done in Jammu and Kashmir in terms of the events that have been held on G20. I'm sure Chief Secretary will speak more about it, but we were very, very impressed with things like the walkathon, things like the cycle event that was held to popularize G20, or the mock G20 process, or the awareness rally in Badgam, and you had, as I said, the walkathon in Baramulla. Sports is an important area where G20 is being popularized. So this, I think, is critical, and film tourism, as Secretary mentioned, is very specific to J&K. Every meeting should have outcomes, and I said that there is no better outcome in terms of any sector or any industry than tourism in terms of percolation of wealth, distribution of wealth. The very idea that we should use this meeting to draw attention to Jammu and Kashmir, introduce qualitative and specific and new areas of tourism. How can this help revive the local economy in terms of handicrafts, textiles, in many of the other very, very critical areas in Jammu and Kashmir, which has a very rich culture and handicrafts tradition, I think is very, very important. And we ourselves have seen there's a lot of effort and excitement in the city and in the state, in the Union Territory, on the potentials that can come forward. We've seen women's self-help groups, we've seen many groups mobilize, and I want to mention this as not a person who lives in Jammu and Kashmir, someone who has come and seen it from outside, but we are proud of the fact that we have such traditions in our country, and those traditions are today being revived, popularized and promoted in a manner that has never been done before. One last aspect, and of course that is besides the fact that the UN's SDGs very, very greatly emphasize on lowering inequality in terms of incomes. Tourism does that, and I think that's important. But last but not the least, I want to convey our very, very grateful thanks. You see, every G20 meeting, the role of states and union territories is critical. The central government can do a certain amount, but at the end of the day, the state's role and the state's contribution is critical to the success of any G20 meeting in our country. And the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, led by the Honorable Lieutenant Governor, Honorable Chief Secretary, and an incredible and absolutely outstanding team of officers who have worked day and night to make this event a success. I'm sure both Secretary Tourism and I would like to convey our sense of both gratitude. It has been teamwork, of course. All of us have worked very closely together. But the Union Territory really has gone out of its way, taken it as a matter of pride for the Union Territory, looked at the G20 as an opportunity, and I'm sure if the G20 is the most significant international event we have held in India ever, this will be the
रोमांचक रविवार के डबल हेडर में एमआई और आरसीबी दोनों खेलेंगे